This is how you properly shill. Okay, so we're here at AlphaCool now at CES 2019, and we're gonna talk about some of the products they're showing here in terms of their water cooling line, because this is a brand I've actually worked with now for about 7 years, and we've seen quite the about face in 180 in terms of kind of like the ideology, and in a good way. We're going to talk about that because this is exciting, especially if you're interested in water cooling. But first, we've got to thank our sponsor, and of course, that is Corsair and the Corsair One high-performance desktop PC. The i140, i160, and i180 can be found in the link in the description below. Let's go and start with server grade stuff, because a lot of people forget server grade is where a lot of things are kind of pioneered and engineered, because there's a huge power demand, there's a huge heat that output that has to be controlled. And what we've got right here are what look like some very funky formats, and these are like 40 mil, technically 40 mil fans that would go on here. And I've seen people go, what would you do with this? Well, these are designed for server racks, and these are what some different size 1U radiators would look like. This is one kind of plumbed up right here using some of what they're calling AlphaCool reservoir. Technically, these have a DCLT pump in there, which has had some revisions over the years. A very small but powerful pump, I believe 2.2 meters of head pressure. And so you can see how it's designed to be very, very flat. This is the blocks right here that would also support like TR4 or like Threadripper type of socket, but this is server grade with multiple input output, so you can connect it however you need. But you see how everything here is obviously very flat. So AlphaCool is very, very busy in the server space. And you can see we go all the way up to 2U here, and I believe you could even find some 4U stuff if you look hard enough. But so that's why you've got these what look like very funky formats. So if you've ever been to a data center and you've seen what kind of HVAC or HVAC units they have to keep those things cool, it is insane also how loud it could be. If you get like Ultra Kazi or like Delta fans in here, blowing across the blade server, then that's a lot of noise and a lot of air that just gets exhausted into the space that has to be cooled. Well, you can keep the server cool through water cooling, obviously, which means there's a lot of R&D, and that makes it into your personal PC. Let's go ahead and talk about this. This is the Ice Bear. This is technically a closed loop AIO, but it's expandable. So you have some quick disconnects right here on the rubber tube. I am a huge fan of rubber tubing. I hate FEP. I'm glad to see no one's really using FEP anymore, which is the flexible tubing that's very ribbed for no one's pleasure in this case. It's also got right here the ice block. Bet you'll never guess what that stands for. Yeah, so the ice block, this is well, obviously your CPU block, and it would support your Ryzen sockets, your Intel sockets. But what you've got right here is it all goes into this kind of a self-contained unit, which has this is a 280 millimeter or double 140 millimeter fan setup. It's got your reservoir, it's got your pump in here. This one is pre-filled, but you can actually get this independently as well. So if you want to do a water-cooled build and you can fit theoretically a 420 size radiator, because there's a lot of excess size on this, you could buy this as a unit separate, put this in your case, and then all you have to do is run your own block and your own tubing or to a graphics card or whatever, and you can expand this. So you have a radiator, pump, and reservoir combo, making it very simplified, less connections, less points of leaking. Oh, and the fans, of course, AlphaCool's teamed up with Be Quiet, so these are the silent wing fans. Great optimized pressure, they're silent, hence the name. I believe these are fluid bearings, so you have a very good longevity, high static pressure. I mean, it's just a good collaboration. Instead of trying to make a competing product, they reached out to a company that's really sort of cornered that market and said, hey, why don't we work together? And that's what that is. Those people that are form over function and function over form, whoever you are, it's nice when you can get both. So we've got 3 different blocks right here, different variations of their blocks. These are the ice block. Again, the GPX, or GPX, graphics, cooling, you name it. So this is almost like a clamshell where the edges of the PCB are covered with this. This is metal, it's not plastic. So it hangs over the side, and you can see it's got a partial cover here. So if you were doing like a vertical mount, this is what it would look like. Side mount, it's all blacked out. You can see it's got this real sleek design. It's a matte black. This, I believe, is a 2080 Ti. Yeah, 2080 Ti. You can see how clean that looks. It is nickel plated. If you want to show it off and go with full cover block, you can see right here, this is the acrylic version. And there's the nickel-plated block. As you can see, it's full cover again for 2080 Ti, very aesthetically pleasing. You've got your fittings that obviously are on both sides of the terminal here, so regardless of which way you're facing it, you can get it to flow the way you need to. And then this is basically the same block, but just with an acetal solid cover, which I think looks amazing. I'm really kind of finding myself transition to this whole this whole clean aesthetic. Now the radiators have gone through a bit of a redesign too. We recently did a build actually using AlphaCool radiators in our editing rig and a couple of other systems, but they've changed the rads just a little bit. This is a 45 millimeter thick radiator, but you can see that they've changed the way the end tanks are a little bit. So instead of having that sort of a tapered design where it sort of narrows out, you can see now it's gone with a very flat, squared off design. Now this isn't gonna really do anything for performance. It's more of just an aesthetically pleasing thing. I can tell you there's a high copper content in this because this is a fairly weighty radiator. This looks to be about a 10 or 12 FPI, yeah. So it's not incredibly dense on the fin stack, which is why the extra thickness will give you, the additional cooling that you're losing in terms of fin density. But this also means that you can use lesser static pressure fans, lower RPM fans to get decent cooling without having to run a lot of RPM or noise. Because oftentimes when you run fans through a radiator, the air that comes off a fan doesn't come straight out. It goes out in a cone shape. And so what happens is it hits these fins and then it's forced into another direction again and it starts bouncing off these fins and has to flow through. So you get this really turbulent sound. And so when you have a very dense fin stack, it kind of amplifies that sound a little bit. So this means you can slow the RPM down. The surface area isn't sacrificed because it's thicker. And so you can get virtually the same cooling as a higher density FPI thinner rad. And by just sort of kind of adjusting the way you get that surface area. So these are some new rads coming from, well, I guess already available from AlphaCool. But I asked them, I said, what are you kind of most excited about in this show? Like they've got this called the Ice Ball. This is a pump reservoir RGB combo thing. It's kind of like, let's just make something crazy for the heck of it. I feel like this would become the centerpiece of the build, and you build around it in some way. I imagine like some sort of like a BB-8 custom thing on this or something. We talked about this at Computex and why I'm falling in love with AlphaCool. AlphaCool said we need to be better. How do we do that? Well, we hire the modders. We hire the people that have been using our products. We hire the people that believe in our products and want to see it get better. So they've hired a team of modders that now help with designing this stuff, testing this stuff, marketing this stuff. So it's literally the brand that is like by modders for everyone, not just modders. So they take the stuff and they design it to, if you had like pie in the sky ideas, what would you do? Well, you get stuff like this. We have seen a huge improvement in quality of the fittings, the copper grade, the finishes. The acrylics are absolutely as clear as glass, which is nice to see because to make acrylic look good, it requires some finishing work. And in the past, unfortunately, some of the early stuff I talked about with AlphaCool was there was a lot of defects and blemishes and stuff that really just sort of put a black eye on a product that otherwise was performing very well, but it was like performance first, aesthetics second. Now it's performance and aesthetics together. So I felt it was important to come to CES and see what they had to show because AlphaCool has invested a lot of money in making this product line appealing to everyone, both modders and general users. So you can guarantee you're gonna see more from us as we move forward. Like little things like this. Where'd it go? It's over here somewhere. We'll just use this guy because I stacked up a bunch of product around me. So the DCLT pump that's mounted here to the AlphaCool reservoir, it's gonna come up with a name later. This is new. So this is the pump right here that's mounted to this little block that has input or in and out fittings that you could put rotaries on, double males, and mount it anywhere. So in this case, you have a pump pressurizing the inlet and a pump pulling the fluid out. So you don't have a pressure drop across the resistance. You can use these in your own builds. Small form factor builds. You don't have to mount a pump and a reservoir somewhere. You just get this in line somewhere. You can fill it through the extra fittings that are showing on here. And then you can this is the kind of thing that I think would have come in handy when we were doing our Ghost S1 build. Unfortunately, this wasn't available at that time, but I think we're gonna have to come up with some interesting concepts to utilize this sort of stuff because I think at least the brand deserves us to go in there and really kind of mess with it. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's nice to see water cooling sort of make it a very mainstream representation now amongst many brands. Founding brands like AlphaCool that's been around for years and years, making it so that the average consumer can use this stuff and feel comfortable with it. So please look for this in the future. And again, a huge thanks to everyone watching this video. And a thanks to Corsair for bringing us here at CES 2019. I know I've kind of gone on and gushed and fanboyed and shilled enough in this video, but I believe in this product line. So that's why you guys are gonna see it moving forward. All right guys, thanks for watching and we'll see you in a couple minutes.